in nature and helper in function. When God created man and woman, after he created man, when he was about to looked at him and said what? My microphone is not on. How about now, son?
Not good for man to be alone.
Yes. Yeah, created the man, and God said, okay, it's not good for man to be alone. So what am I going to do?
Create a beautiful woman.
Create a beautiful woman. Yes. That's awesome. Well, that too, but that beautiful woman also shall be a helper, fit for him. The New American Bible calls it, I will make a suitable partner for him. And God gave man the kind of companion he needed, a helper comparable to him. And we already covered this, but last time when we met last Wednesday, we talked about what a godly woman does, and we are talking about 1 Peter chapter 3, because we read a lot about the role of a godly woman here as we read it in 1 Peter chapter 3. So this is the Apostle Peter talking, inspired by God. And let's take a volunteer and read this 4 verses. Who wants to read this? Aaron?
Wives, likewise, be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they without the word may be won by the conduct of their wives. When they observe your chaste conduct, accompanied by fear, do not let your adornment be merely outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, or putting on fine apparel. Rather, let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God.
Very precious in the sight of God. So last week, on Wednesday actually, we were talking about the first characteristics. The first characteristic, we're talking about the godly woman's disposition. The first one being submissive. We already covered this last Wednesday. We're talking about submission being a role to be filled and does not imply inferiority in the sight of God. Submission cannot be forced. You cannot submit a woman. You cannot force a woman in submission. It must be voluntarily assumed, and culture cannot change God's design role. The culture will tell you that a woman should not be submissive to her husband, should not be submissive to anybody. And somebody mentioned, rightfully so, that a woman oftentimes in the world doesn't have a problem to go and submit to the boss that works for her, and submit to the government, but then when it comes home to her husband, a person that, right, he loves her and shares his life with her, like, wait, now I'm going to draw the line. I won't submit to you. But culture, that's what culture will tell, which is very often in contradiction to God, to the will of God. So that's the first one. I'm not going to emphasize too much on that first word, submissive. I believe that is one of the hardest one. The hardest thing to do as a woman is to submit, especially if you're married to a knucklehead that is not a good leader. Can you imagine submit to someone that's taking you somewhere in a desert? It's like, where are you going? Like, no direction. It's very hard. But the next one is having a chaste conduct. So the godly woman's predisposition, what makes a woman godly is her chaste conduct. This is something that's been so lost in our day and age, throughout the world, not just in US, but the idea of a chaste conduct. If you look on a social media, whether it's Twitter or whether it's Facebook or whether it's just so hard to see people behave, women and men too, but women in this case, as a chaste conduct. You see the opposite, unfortunately. I mean, it is to the point that, nowadays, at least it's worse with me with Twitter, I don't know, or with X. I have a few people that I follow on X because I like to follow some people on X, but they give you so much more garbage in between, and it's so worldly. It's like, okay, skip, and you go to something that's positive. But I'm just making the point that this chaste conduct is very rare in our day and age. It's not valued. Because it means holiness, purity, pure for carnality and discipline. This is the opposite of what you find in the world. This is what it means to be chaste, right? Conduct. So what makes a godly woman? Well, surprise, surprise, a person that is godly and holy and purity. Pure for carnality and disciplined. So this purity results from the observance of God's laws, not purity because you see yourself as pure, pure because God sees you pure. And she is to live her everyday, her life as God would have her live. So she wakes up in the morning and today she says, I'm going to live for God. And every day that's what she does. Hard as it is, at least that's her true north, right? That's the direction she's going. So this would align with modest apparel, zealous in good works, sober-minded, and teaching by example. Doesn't have to even say a word. She just teaches by example. Yes, sir.
Real quick, I really like how in the context of 1 Peter 3, when we're talking about the chaste conduct, he starts with telling them, submit with your husband because if he's not, and then have your chaste conduct because if he's not a follower of Christ, by not just being beautiful, like the seductress woman that will lead you away from knowledge and Proverbs, by having not just beauty, outward beauty, but inward beauty and all these good, wonderful deeds, you'll win your husband over to Christ.
Yeah.
It's not by your words, but it's by your actions. It's how you conduct yourself and how you show what it means to be a godly woman, not a seductress.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the chaste conduct. Modest appeal, zealous in good works. That means you're going to look for performing good works. And teaching by example. Teaching by example. The next one is respectful. This godly woman is respectful. Respect God. How do you respect God? I'm not talking respectful as polite and say good morning to everybody on the street, or it's about respecting God by respecting His word. You can't say, I respect God, but then you don't respect His word, right? So that's what it means, respect. Respect towards God. If you respect towards God and towards His word, you will be respectful towards others too, because God tells you that you should be kind and gentle and all those great qualities you're going to have if you do respect God's word, right? So also respectful to all who are in God-appointed positions. All who are in God-appointed positions, whatever those roles may be. What are some God-appointed positions? Yes? President, governor, but even in the church. In the church, you may have elders, you may have deacons, you may have different leadership roles in the church. And she is to regard those roles with respect, right? So younger women also should respect older women. I mean, that is so fitting and so natural, right? For younger women to just respect, that means have a certain, when they speak, you listen, you acknowledge that they know more than you. Is that crazy? If a woman is older, as far as I'm concerned, no matter how much time you're spending on social media, an older woman will run circles around a younger woman. In every regard, but especially when it comes to being godly, with age comes such perspective and huge lesson for younger women to respect the older women. Yes, sir?
That'd be just like the chart that you showed, where it's like we learn it all real quick, we know it all, and then we realize we don't actually know it all, and then we actually start maturing and gaining knowledge and wisdom. So wherever the wife, or I mean even husband suits, I think that's where the chart was for. The older women are down here, they've done it all, they've learned it all, and the younger women are just like the little kids or teenagers, like I know it all, I know how to do it, but you've never done it yet.
Yeah, indeed. There's something really special that happens in a woman's age and in a man's age. And what age? We're talking age. What is that special age?
40.
Oh, yes. Why did you say 40?
Because that's when.
Look at that. He's a very scriptural. It's true. I'm working on a lesson on that, on the number 40 and what
It's
40
my birthday
does.
today.
40 years old? No.
Nah, 40 something.
So you're already over that. That's nice. Yes. So no, a little bit of giggle there, but Barrett absolutely answered the right question. There's something that happens at age 40. You know, how many years were the people of God in the wilderness? 40. A lot of things in the Bible comes by 40. It looks like it takes about 40 years for somebody to really awaken and find themselves. So if you're not 40 right now, you are still on the ascending path and you're still getting here. Yes, sir? If you're over, well, that's fine too. I think it's better here than here. I've lived both. Right now I'm 50 something, so I think it's better here as opposed to being kind of a knucklehead here. Yes, Red?
We think about Moses, he learned the Egyptian culture for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then he had to learn humility for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then he dealt with the children of Israel for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you talk about breaking out 40,
Yeah.
40, 40.
Yeah.
It seems like a long time, but it sure passes quick.
Yeah, it does. Sir?
I was thinking with the regards of younger women learning from the older women, at least by 40, you have probably had and have fully raised your children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At least one of them.
Yes.
20 years. So
Yeah.
by that time, you've at least gone through the whole cycle of raising a kid
Yeah.
in your house, and now you actually have, advice
Perspective,
to be able to give
right.
perspective and go, hey, this is what worked, this is what didn't, you can try this, you can try that. You can
Yeah.
try ideas.
It's true. So it is very important, and this is a very serious conversation we have. And why? Because the world, and really the devil will tell you that a person that is 20 years old, the world tries to tell you that this person, how can I take advice from this person? Is not in a capacity to teach me anything. I know. What is the devil gonna come and whisper in your ear? I know better than this person. Who is this person to tell me anything? I don't have nothing to learn from this person for whatever reason, and especially not to know about what you don't know. That's really what kills one person, right? Because you think you know, but you have no clue of your blind spot of what you don't know. Rhett and then Barrett.
Barrett has said this a number of times where when you start to think about what you do know,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you actually really know it,
Mm-hmm.
two different times.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're 20,
Yeah.
you think you know a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I'm here to say when you're 15, apparently you know everything.
Right. And even when you're younger, when you hit 3, right, the terrible 3s, know every single thing you tell the
But thing
kid.
is we all learn,
Uh-huh.
and we look back. But I think with the 20-year-old looking at a 4-year-old, the old concept, they don't understand
I know.
what I'm going through. There is, how do you say it? There's nothing new under the sun.
Yes.
There's no new sin, there's no
Yeah.
new issues, there's no new problems. We just live in a
Right.
technological age in which they're slightly presented different.
Yeah, that is such a good point because you mentioned about that. And I'll tell you one other thing that makes me so sick to my stomach to the point of throwing up when they say, oh, baby boomers. And they're looking at them like there's some kind of zombie from like totally people with no brains. Like, excuse me, what do you know about what baby boomers have to go through? You are so far from really, but nowadays I'll tell you, among younger generations, and you can disagree all you want, baby boomers, they are regarded as some kind like a second class citizen or somehow. You're like, if you're a baby boomer, it's like, boy, you gotta go hide somewhere because you've had it so easy, or you fell with your butt in the butter or something like that. What do they say? Yet is so really shows how little that person knows. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, anybody that is older should be regarded as with respect, right? Since we're talking, so if you don't regard your elder, whether it's a boomer or whatever generation they feel that they are, but just because you're younger and you look at a person that's older and you think somehow you're better than, it just shows how small you are and what a long journey you have to go. So it's better to just zip it up, don't tell nothing about nobody that's negative, and be respectful. Brad.
I was just gonna say, I know it's not an excuse,
Mhm.
but one thing that I have heard, and I agree with Rhett and Barrett, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just that the time changes, the technology changes.
Yeah.
But like with regards to like the whole boomer argument,
Mhm.
I think that comes mostly from the economic side of things, where I mean, even you even told us, it was like there was a time when a woman could stay at home and a husband could go to work, and just that was enough to pay for the house, 2 kids, 2 cars, and now it's not enough. Now both parties have to go to work. You even have to get 2 jobs, both sometimes, and it's not an excuse because you can make it work and you can do better. So, but I know that the boomer generation, they're the ones looking at the younger generation going, you're complaining so much about rent and jobs and this and that, like why
Yeah.
why are you complaining? I did this, and then they're not seeing it from
Yeah.
the younger people's perspective. But when it's regards to, women teaching younger women, I think it's a different situation. So I think it's important to look at both sides.
Well,
With
it's
certain
true,
things.
but I'll tell you, I don't have much sympathy nowadays for young people. Maybe just me. To me, is just you lazy, get to work, okay? Because with the baby boomers who are in their 80s, okay, they didn't have what you have right now. They didn't have the technology. They didn't have the chat GPT.
Well,
They didn't.
I said I did agree with
No,
you.
I'm not chastising you. I'm not chastising you. I'm saying that the world has changed so much. I believe it's true right now. There's much more opportunities for people that want to work than there were when somebody was going to a job and working for all of their life in one place. A whole lot more boring, I would say. So you look at both perspectives. It's true. At the end of the day, it's just nobody should say something negative about anybody, or looking, oh, poor me. It just comes from a place of poor me. Look at me. I have it so hard. And, those baby boomers, they had it so easy. It's like, no, you are reading to really whatever you want to find there, but you have no clue.
Victim mentality.
Victim mentality, yes, because then if you victim, then poor me, they don't have to do anything. Pity party. It's terrible, and it is what? It is deadly to success. It is deadly to success. Aaron and then Barrett.
Okay, so I'm gonna disagree with Bradley, because I don't think it was about finances. You look at the baby boomers, you're talking 1946 to 1964. 46, what are they doing? They're coming out of World War II.
Yeah.
I don't believe finances,
We're easy.
they worked hard.
Yeah.
Like, these people worked hard. It's about priorities.
Interest rates 18% to buy a house.
I mean,
Grow your own food.
things were different.
Yeah.
Their priorities
Yeah.
were different. You look at our priorities today
Yeah.
compared to then. The reason they could have somebody stay home, that was their priority.
Yeah.
It's not that way today.
Well, I agree with that. The only thing I
Well, you
was
better agree with that.
I've seen
Sitting right behind you.
I've seen accountants, and they take that high interest rate with the price of the houses were and the income they were going, and then go, today's money, that's 200 something thousand. And it's like, we're not making that, we're still making 50. They were making 30, now we're making 50, but the price of everything else has gone up, and it's like, that's not equal. But everything else I agree with. That's all I'm saying is like, when it's that one perspective about the boomers and the millennials or whatever, like that's where I can understand, because I can see both. I've seen the numbers, but I agree. Some people are just being lazy. There's things that are not the priority. We're addicted to technology, and there's so much
More distractions.
It's more
Right.
than just one piece.
Right.
I was just pulling in one piece. To say,
It's complex. It's just that we should look at ourselves every day in the mirror. What can I do? How can I get from where I am to where I need to be? And don't just point fingers and try to see yourself as a victim. Other people had it better than you, because I'll tell you what, those people worked hard. Every person that I know that is a boomer, maybe I have more respect for them is because I've seen them. I've seen my parents are boomers. I've seen them work. You know what I'm saying? I've seen them, and I'll tell you, both of my parents and their generation, they worked their fingers to the bones. So that's why, because I've been there, I can never say, well, you had it better than I did. Yes, sir.
I think there's a lot of things that go in with the choice factor.
Yeah.
Number one, where you choose to live determines a lot of how much things are going to cost.
Yeah.
There's many other states, many other places you can go. One income will do just fine.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we look at, well, that income, I only make $42,000 a year, now I make 80. Everybody that's making 40 seems to be doing just fine. A friend of mine has a place in Oklahoma, and he says, people that go from California that go to Oklahoma will usually succeed greater than those in Oklahoma.
Come here.
But the ones in Oklahoma are fully content with what they have, and they're happy.
Mm-hmm.
They're not unhappy.
Yeah.
The reason being is you make $42,000 a year, you spend $20,000 living, and you're happy.
Yeah.
Californians come there, they want it all. They want it all, and they work all these extra jobs, and that's why everybody in Oklahoma sees someone from California and hires them.
Yeah.
They get 4 times the work, but we're
For half the pay.
that's not bad. But I mean, it's just, they'll work 3 or 4 jobs because they have this mindset of, it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. Okay, I love the coastline.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never see me buy a house along the coastline because they're just out of my reach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm content with that.
Yeah, but how many people say, well, I can't buy a house? Well, I mean, if you're going to go buy a house near all the stars in Hollywood, you cannot afford that house. I mean, you cannot afford a house, maybe even California, if you're just starting out and you're making minimum wage at McDonald's. So, yeah, maybe you cannot afford everywhere you want to be, and that's perfectly normal. Right?
One of those things, though, is sometimes, too, it goes back to choice.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember your first house, but I remember my first house. It was a dump. It was a treasure. We worked on it. But you don't buy a $300,000, $400,000 house back then until you bought your first $80,000 house.
Sure.
And then you bought the $110,000 house. And it takes years of growing.
It does.
Now, you have an investment ideology about houses. That's different. That's just like buying anything that's going to turn a profit, right?
Yeah.
The thing is where you're going to start is where you have to start.
Yeah, exactly. And stretch as long as you can afford, and according to your knowledge and according to your income and according to whatever your brain allows you to, because some people can do a lot, some people can do a whole lot. So, but I definitely think we're in a rabbit hole right now. So let's jump out of the rabbit hole and go to be gentle. So the woman, the godly woman's disposition, she needs, also one of the things she has is that she's gentle. She's gentle. So gentleness, another word for that is meekness, which is submitting to the yoke. That's what it means. Having a disposition of spirit in which we accept God's dealing with us as good. I love it that we had the conversation earlier about a spirit that is complaining and look at me and other people are better than me and poor me. And really, we're talking about having a disposition, a spirit that accepts God's dealing with us as good. Whatever God's dealing with me is, it should be, I am so fortunate. And you think at the positive. Think of the way God blesses you. Think of what you have as opposed to what you don't have. That is such a critical mindset to have, to focus what you have as opposed to what you don't have, what other people have that you can't have. That promotes growth and so forth. So the opposite of self-assertiveness. That's what it means to be gentle. The opposite of self-assertiveness and self-interest. We trust in God's goodness, and that God's control our will, and God is in charge. So that's really what it means to be gentle. And it's manifested in how we respond to others. How we respond to others. Gentleness, that's how it's manifested, is when you're in the presence of others. Do others find you as gentle? Rhett.
I think that's best displayed too in a child and when they get hurt. Who do they run to, mom or dad?
Mommy.
That's right, 'cause dad don't.
Get the
Just
Band-Aid.
get up, brush it off, you'll be fine. Mama will take care. Mama will nurture and be gentle,
Connect.
loving and kind. And not that men aren't, it's just we have a totally different approach to that whole aspect.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of role, right? Because it's absolutely right balance to have two, to where there comes a point the kid needs to know that they need to be loved and cared for, but there comes a time that the kid needs to be told, you know what, you better toughen up. So it needs to be that balance, and God gave that balance. That's why families with father and mother help create that balance, right? Barrett?
Yeah, you can actually see that working in the family almost every day. Story got hurt at baseball practice, not practice the game, and mom runs into the batting cage, and I'm like,
Beat up the kid that hurt her?
I'm just kidding. No, that's my son. And so mom was taking care, and I go up, it's time to go home? No? Okay, so I go back and sit down, but as soon as it's time to go home, I carried her all the way to the car.
Right, muscle.
That's my job.
Yeah.
I know what my role is. It's knowing your role in the family and not mixing up those roles where the family works.
Yeah.
When you start mixing up roles, it gets complicated.
It does. So let's just keep in mind that even in the presence of an opportunity to be gentle, husband and wife, they have different roles. And Red is right. Mother is the one really why we're talking about gentleness. You remember when we're talking about the role and responsibility of fathers and we did talk about meekness too, but we didn't emphasize so much of being gentle. I mean, there's absolutely opportunities for men to be gentle. You can just go around with a 2x4. But definitely is a more prevalent quality in a woman. Yes, sir.
I think that gentle part on the men was don't provoke your children to
Yeah, well, right. That goes.
don't push them the other direction.
Yeah. So be gentle. Be a little more restrained. Very good. And the last one is a quiet spirit. Quiet spirit. So quiet is being that tranquility of disposition, being peaceable, and it's hard, I'll tell you. You know, I'm glad my wife is not here. I've been married with her for 20-some years. 25 is going to be this year. Well, I've been with her for 25 years, okay? Elena's like, no, 24, because I'm 23. Okay, so anyways, the reality is that, you know, just the way that women are made up, just their makeup, they don't have as much of a quiet spirit than a man. Their emotions are louder than men. Could you say that? You know, like emotionally speaking, they are more complex. Okay, I'm trying not to say things here that you guys could throw things at me. So, but you know, think about it. I'm gonna erase this real quick because I have one more illustration. So, let's say what I mean here is, you know, if this is a line with a mood, right? This is mood. And a guy comes, and how is a guy's mood over a month period? I'm glad he's here. You know, he's pretty much straight, right? Maybe goes a little bit like this, sometimes go like this. It's pretty straight, right? But, okay, again, women, forgive me if this is... Women is not quite like so flat, right? I mean, I don't know, sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. I mean, sometimes as men, you can see it all over the place. Sometimes it goes up all the way and come back. And then that time of the month comes. Oh, forgive me, ladies, but it's true. And then it goes out of whack again. And then it goes, but it's kind of all over the place. And really the challenge is that for us men, you know, you expect us to be kind of whatever those places are. You know, it's like, okay, why are you here? You're here. You know, you're kind of like, okay, honey, you're right here. So I hope I'm illustrating this in a way that you don't take anything negative out of it. It's just the reality. Women are much more complex when it comes to their emotions. And men, it's very hard sometimes to always be there, you know, to meet them there and to constantly catch up, right? Shante?
I think, like, at least for myself, even if I'm more complex in my emotions, I also, like, I think I show it more. So I think he'd be able to pick up on my, like, if I'm upset,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's clear that I'm upset. I know Barry shaking his head up, but I'm like, he's gonna know that I'm upset. Now, he may not know why I'm upset.
Yeah, that's the problem. We don't know why and how to deal with it. Yeah, because, okay, what's wrong? Just fix it.
At least emotionally.
I know as a general principle, men are more quiet and even pace, and then women are kind of all over the place. But I do think it depends each individual person, because there are women that are like that, and there's men who are just all over the place.
Well, right. Generally speaking, though,
it's the general
yes.
principle.
And there's a reason. I'm not suggesting that this is wrong. God just created women different than men. And women, like Brett said, the kid runs to the mother because she's got more emotions and that caring and the, you know, as opposed to the guy, go get a Band-Aid, son, and what's wrong with you? Be a man, toughen up.
Yeah.
Yes, Rhett?
Well, I think it's kind of why Satan approached Eve in the garden
Yeah, maybe.
versus man. Man just didn't care. It was just like, whatever, I'm not eating of that. God said don't eat. And yet,
Yeah,
the woman starts getting things in her head because Satan is telling her things.
yeah,
And when you think about the lust of the eyes, you know, the lust of the flesh, those are emotional things that kind of, you know, kind of direct your direction. I mean, it's just kind of interesting how emotion and things like that just drive you.
yeah. Yeah, and of course, we, both men and women, have to control their emotions. Your mind has to be over your emotions. Your mind has to run your emotions. You can have your emotions run your mind, right? But it's not easy, and it's a lot harder if you are in a female body and you have hormones that kind of go like this all month long. And I'm not saying this absolutely is a negative. I'm just saying it just to acknowledge a reality, and for all of us, men and women, to really accept each other as we are, and really live together and have great relationship, whether it's in the church or in the family. Sir?
I always try to think of it as, and I think the knowledge is power of having the understanding of this is how
Yeah.
we as humans function.
Yeah.
Because then you can understand how to cope with it and work with each other.
Yeah.
But I always try to think of the analogy as like God put our spirit into like a robot, a body. And a male body and a female body has different challenges that you have to deal with through life. It's not that you choose to have this.
Right.
This is how you're geared to work, and you're judged on how well you can control all
Program,
these emotions
yes.
and all these things that
Yeah.
come at you in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
The opposite sex has to be understanding of this is the body the spirit is put in that has these challenges.
Yeah.
How do I work and help this person?
Yeah.
Because we're both helpers for
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
And having an understanding, I think helps. I'm not married, so I can't speak to that piece of it, but that's just how I've kind of seen
Yeah.
life along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great perspective. So very important. We're talking about men a couple of weeks ago, and we're talking about how men struggle maybe with anger, right? Because anger is like women, I've lived half a century or more. Women don't have as many issues with anger. Of course, there's angry women out there, but it's men most of the time that have issues with anger, right? That's why God says, be angry and sin not. It doesn't, so it's mostly men have issues with that. But when it comes to emotions, again, that's something that the extent to which any person, I guess male or female, but in this context we're talking about a woman's disposition and having that quiet spirit, right? The alternative is to not be quiet and be just loud and express and pretty much every single emotions that come through your heart, you're just gonna put it out there, right? And actually there's a passage, I believe, in the book of Proverbs that says that the wise person hides their emotion, and the foolish person, all the emotions are out there in the view, right? So the extent to which a person, I guess male and female, is able to control their emotions and have a quiet spirit, that is really going to be a huge asset for them to have. Because a lot of people, especially people that are younger, it's harder to develop, that skill really of really controlling your emotions and stay more keen, right? All right, so we're talking about quiet spirit. As a quiet spirit, this is not self-assertive, it's not a busybody. That's what it means to be a quiet spirit. You're not a busybody, not self-assertive, and it's the opposite of usurping authority. Authority, whose authority? Anybody's authority. A police officer pulls you over because you're going over the speed limit. No, the guy's not crazy. You were going over the speed limit. Just say, I'm sorry, officer. You're right. I should slow down. Thank you for pulling me over and reminding me that it's not safe for me to go fast. As opposed to argue with him. It's like, no, I wasn't going fast. And what's wrong with you? It's the cop's fault now. It's just foolishness. And trying to have that combative spirit as opposed to just be gentle, right? And just accept and don't let ego come into play. So usurping authority, whether it is the police officer pulling you over, or whether it is at work, or whether it is in the church, or whether it is in the family, just, right, please.
But there's a scripture that says we're to be peacemakers.
Yes.
So when someone approaches you,
Yes.
obviously you should tell
Lead
the truth.
with that, right.
You should be a peacemaker,
Yeah.
not hostile,
Yeah.
combative, and
Yeah.
whatever else.
Yeah.
is coming out.
Yeah. So having a quiet spirit, it's a very important trait, and it also means to be noticed for her godliness and service, not for her self-exaltation. I hope that that makes sense, right? So those are a few traits, and then of course I want to go to we cannot talk about a woman being godly and what it takes to be godly without talking about the book of Proverbs, because the book of Proverbs, Proverbs 31, second part, is all about what's called a virtuous wife. Verse 10 says, who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. And I did a little research on rubies. Do you know that rubies are very expensive and very precious, even more precious than diamonds, if it's the right stone? I did a little research. This little bitty ring, it's 8.3 million. You can buy a diamond, it's not 8.3 million. This is another one, 10.1 million. 10 carat, I guess no, more than that. Yeah, 10 carat. It's beautiful. I must tell you that of all the rocks that I've ever seen in my life, rubies are my favorite. It's just something about that red. It's such depth to it. I remember many years ago, I had a lady, actually you might know her or have heard of her. Her name is Patty Newman. She's related to the Paul Newman. I think it's a sister-in-law or something like that. And she had a ring, and her ring was just a normal ring, but it had like 3 red rubies on it. And that, every time she would come, she wore that ring. It's like I would look at the ring like, wow, that's such a beautiful ring. I wish I could afford to buy it for my wife. And now I still think that maybe I'll bump into her one day and say, can I buy that ring for you? Not that my wife will appreciate, because you appreciate she may, but you don't buy your wife jewelry, right? Let her buy her own jewelry. But rubies are expensive, and they go up. This another ring for 18 million. This one, I have 2 more. This one, 30 million for a ring, for a piece of ruby. Another one, this is 34 million. Can you imagine? Yeah, so do you think finding a virtuous wife is valuable? More than rubies? Yeah, more than rubies. When you find a virtuous wife, it's like you find a $34.8 million ruby. And actually it says rubies, many rubies. That's what happens when you find a virtuous woman. a virtuous wife. So then you can say, well, I want to be that woman. How can I be that woman? I want to be that woman that a man looks and say, you know what? You are worthy, more precious than many rubies. Tell me, how do I need to be like? Well, I'm glad you asked. So thankfully, the book of Proverbs, God tells humans what it means to be a virtuous woman, the kind of things you should pursue. And the first one is a devoted woman. Devoted woman. Let's please read a couple of verses here. Verse 31. Verse 31. Chapter 31, verses 11 and 12. Who wants to read this? Proverbs 31. We have 3 more minutes. Bradley.
The heart of her husband safely trusts her, so he will have no lack of gain.
Is that 11 and 12?
She does him good and not evil all the days of her life.
Boy, that is like a lot packed in just getting started, okay? And does her good all the days of her life. Devoted woman. The next, it says an industrious woman. 13 through 19. Who wants to read this? Shantae, you there?
Yeah. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like merchant ship. She brings her food from afar. She rises also while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. From her earnings she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She senses that her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out at night. She stretches out her hands to the staff, and her hands grasp the spindle.
Yes, thank you. So you see here, very industrious woman. Can you say, whoa, this woman does a lot. This woman does a lot. So verse 13 here, it says again, she seeks wool and flax and willingly works with her hands. She's like the merchant ship, brings her food from afar. So this is a person that's really not just sitting on her butt watching Netflix all day while expects her husband to be at work. And I'm not talking about maybe, a woman. There is a time in a woman's life to where she needs to stay home to provide, to take care of the children maybe, But still, this is a very industrious woman. Very industrious woman. And I'll tell you, and by the way, this is also a rare woman. This is not every woman is like this. I mean, if you can find one like this. Elena has a cousin in Romania. I think he had a girlfriend that broke his heart. And now he thinks all girls are just terrible. Typical 23-year-old. 21, yeah. But he thinks he got it all figured out. And he thinks that all women are bad. And the idea is that, well, you have to find a woman that is like this woman. And then you're gonna find really a gem. So industrious here, it is very important. Verse 16 says she considers a field and buys it. From a profit she plants a vineyard. She girds herself actually with strength, it says here. She perceived that her merchandise is good. She does a lot. She does a lot to help her husband. This is not a woman that says, okay, I want to get married to find a husband so then I can stay home. Right? And be supported by my husband. That's not a virtuous woman. And I'm not talking that there's something wrong with staying home. It's fine. You can help from home. But this woman right here, you're talking about merchant ships. She brings in food from afar. I mean, this is like complex operations here. Later on, she says she considers a field and buys it. She buys real estate and sells real estate, makes a profit. Later we'll say that the husband just sits at the gate and doesn't do a whole lot. And everybody like, boy, you are so lucky.
That's pretty impressive.
Very impressive. So I think it's important for us to spend, and especially if you're a woman, if you're seeking to be godly, if you're seeking to be a virtuous wife, look at Proverbs 31. Study this and see how you can be like this woman. Because I'll tell you, if I was not married right now, this is the kind of woman I want to marry. I'm super lucky because I married just this woman. I would blush my wife because my wife definitely is the epitome of Proverbs 31. And I wish that everybody would have what I have, but I know it's not every man is married to a virtuous woman. But every woman, every Christian woman should seek to be a virtuous woman. And the recipe is right here in Proverbs 31. We're just getting started on the virtuous woman. Time is up for today, but let's continue this study on Wednesday, okay? Thank you.